Welcome, everybody, to Pop Culture. I am Scott.
I'm Jason.
And I'm Monica.
In this episode, we are talking about Last Night in Soho, the new film from Edgar Wright, which I'm sure makes every film nerd everywhere just a little bit weak at the knees.
Yes.
He is a bit of a darling. So, I'm not going to say it's his first serious film, but it's certainly his first film devoid of any kind of comedy, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. It's definitely a new direction for him, but I have to say he did it extremely well. I loved this movie very much. There's a lot to like about it.
I really liked it.
Yeah, like between the camera work and the change in the sound and the performances. Yeah, it's great.
It was a somewhat refreshing ghost story.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to look at it. Really,
it didn't break new ground, but it had a really good looking shovel.
Yeah, I think one of the criticisms with this film was just like Edgar Wright doesn't know how to do horror very well because it's his first foray, and I was just like, I don't necessarily find it to be a horror film. It just, is a bit of a thriller with some ghostly elements.
Yeah, well, it's being touted as a psychological horror film. And it's certainly got horrifying moments. I mean, my wife was very displeased with some of the imagery.
Yeah,
not expecting it to be quite so, kind of disturbing in places. Thought it was, I think she had it in her mind that it was going to be like a murder mystery, but retroactive ghost medium murder mystery. But then there were like some pretty nasty things happening.
Yeah, it certainly comes across that way in all the trailers. You think it is a murder mystery, but when you're sitting in the cinema, it turns out to be something that's extremely different. I'm not sure if that was maybe a deliberate choice to throw people off track of what the film was going to be about and not spoil anything, or if it was something that they just perhaps didn't quite understand.
Yeah, well, I actually found it was quite a reflective film, looking at a few themes there that I thought was actually the main purpose of it. It was reflecting on partially, women in the 60s, we have this representation of them then, and I guess the gender politics of being female and basically used and abused, probably being one of the central points to it. It does become a horror film. It doesn't start with that, and that's why I can see how the psychological thriller concept came in, because the fear isn't really obviously something coming from outside more than internal at the beginning. So when we're following the main character through, it feels like she's probably just losing the plot a bit and getting flights of fancy that are a bit spurious, because it suggested that she had a breakdown and that something happened with her mother, and we have all this sort of psychological background to her. And I have to say, is it Thomason? Is that how you say her name?
Thomason McKenzie.
Yeah, Thomason McKenzie was amazing in that.
Yes.
Last time I'd seen her was, I think, Jojo Rabbit. So she's obviously grown a bit, and she manages to really create this amazing innocence there that shows up like a sore thumb against the world she's entering of London, and
London.
That sort of darker edge to it that a lot of people are sort of wanting in terms of her fashion nemesis. You sort of have that conflict there.
It's the most just written like the worst human being you could come across.
Yeah. She was vile.
Yeah, so it really did place you in a different spot, which I think does make it a bit of a surprise. I don't know about the not breaking new ground, but definitely taking you in one direction where you're certainly not expecting where it's going to go. And it's not trying to be a twist. It actually builds to it quite steadily and fairly, I think. I don't think it was much of a twist if people consider the end a twist.
I don't think the end was so much a twist. There was one moment that bothered me, and it was the very heavy-handed scene with Terrence Stamp. That was a bit like, oh,
which bit?
God. Yeah. The confrontation.
Oh, right, yeah.
With really kind of badly written, double-ended dialogue that was sort of like, oh, he's not the guy, but it sounds like he's the guy because he couldn't just be like, honey, I'm a cop. He has to it was like, oh, Christ.
Bit of a red herring, I suppose.
Yeah, but like, it felt kind of clumsy, like clumsily in your face.
Yeah, I would say it's probably one of the very few missteps.
Not that I've got many problems with the movie. That's like the one that just stuck out like a sore thumb in terms of like the kind of badly constructed cliches of this kind of like mystery genre.
Yeah. I guess to go back to what you were saying earlier, Jason, as well, with Ellie, the main character, I also felt like her portrayal of her character is sort of understanding the 1960s and romanticizing it, seeing it through rose-tinted glasses, and then you have that cut against the very real life that is led through Sandy. And I think the most affecting part of that was when you always see Ellie and Sandy almost always together in frame, whether it's through a reflection or she's seeing everything that's happening to break down this idea that she had of this long forgotten era that she's so enamored with. And it breaks her up a little bit, and that's very heartbreaking to watch.
Well, I was reading an interview with Edgar Wright after I watched it, and he was saying that ultimately what he wanted to do was sort of be like, nostalgia can be dangerous if you lean into it too heavily.
Yeah, I got that very much so. It's almost like revisionist history in a way.
Yeah, we look back on these times that like, if only I'd got to live then, things were so much better. And then like, no, it was horrible. And she gets to experience it almost firsthand.
Yeah.
That's the sort of horror that the situation that Sandy's put in.
Yeah, exactly right. And Anya Taylor-Johnson does a phenomenal job as Sandy as well. You know, as we sort of see her as this doe-eyed singer wanting to make it big, and then she's
with
broken down.
Venomous confidence too.
Oh yeah, like she's in it to win it.
Yeah.
Yeah, got more than she bargained for when she went for it. But it's all the performances were great. Matt Smith was actually quite menacing and surprising for me.
He was
I really only knew him as Doctor Who. So
and this is not the Doctor. This is the pimp.
Yep. But quite a nasty one at that. Like
he's not one of them nice pimps.
No, but you get what I mean. He tricks them into it. It's like
and
there's
then
that whole
sort of
subterfuge for
she's stuck in it.
Like auditioning and all these sorts of things. It's like quite horrible how it sort of goes about, and it's good because it helps that whole slow reveal that occurs where we're following this, where Sandy thinks she's going one way, and Ellie sort of thinks it's like a romanticized version of things, and she's getting to live this life and happily going back to the house to try and go to sleep. And
it becomes like a drug for
because it gives her a sense of familiarity in a way, because obviously being in London is not good for her. She's surrounded by all these people that she can't possibly relate to because they're all so horrible and they're all obsessed with themselves. So wanting to go to sleep to enjoy this place that she feels secure in, of course she would want to.
Yeah, and given her sort of the past story that we get teasers of as well.
Yeah. And I guess also with performances, Diana Rigg, in her last acting credit before she passed away, she's always good to watch. She's just, a master at it.
There's this very kind of feels like a minor character initially.
Yeah.
And then I guess we should go down spoiler alley here, because I would like to talk about the ending.
Yeah, let's talk about the ending.
No, that's fine.
If you haven't seen Last Night in Soho, guys, this is your warning. Go see it and then come back to us. but that this is not a Sandy is not the ghost in our story.
No, she's actually a serial killer, and it's fantastic.
That was a nice touch. That that I think for the majority of the film, you think that Sandy is the victim of this story, and that not that she's not a victim, but that she's the dead person that we're trying to get justice for, or in some way, as with all of these kind of ghost movies. And then we realize that it's actually all of these sort of monstrous shapes that keep haunting Ellie are actually they're the ghosts.
Yeah.
And that Ellie is living comfortably in her house packed full of corpses.
They're all in the walls and the floors and the ceiling and wherever else. So yeah, it was a nice horrific reveal in that sense, that it made sense why you'd have so many ghosts and why she'd be transported.
Why it was so potent for her.
Yeah, because they'd all been killed in the room, and there's exactly where she was. So it was done very, very well. I sort of found the needing for them to ask for help, but then almost attacking her a little bit out of whack every once in a while, because it sort of went too far where it looked like they were really
from Sandy's perspective, like
yeah. And so I think it didn't quite.
Then they're chasing her to other places.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it still works incredibly well, and it's a really nice impact at the end of the film. The other thing I sort of found interesting in it was the use of the music, because it's all this 60s music, but there was the originals of what down the track probably became more famous for their covers.
It only makes sense. I mean, Ellie would probably only hunt down the original. She wouldn't necessarily care for the cover.
It's
I know that,
thing again.
But that choice of the music, it almost I sort of wish there was more of a link, because it was a nice way of bringing past and present together as well. So, when you're hearing, there's always something there to remind me, and got my mind set on you, the originals, but then you down the track in the 80s, you had these songs redone and probably more popular then than in the 60s. It was a nice use of that, bringing the two different time periods, I'll call it, rather than being specific to decades, together, and it sort of paralleled what was going on, and I just thought it was a really nice, neat thing going on there that I think was very purposeful.
Yeah, and I think as well, on the topic of music, whenever you see Ellie go back into the 60s, the sound changes completely. Everything becomes more intense, much louder. It's like you're in the room with her, or in the ball scenes and all that kind of stuff. It's very affecting, and it just lets you immerse in the whole experience. Yeah, it was a nice touch.
Yeah, and it's that sort of he knows how to shoot things in a really interesting way, which I think we sort of got in Scott Pilgrim, but he's certainly taken the foot off the accelerator as far as his editing goes. And we get this like a little more immersive kind of, rather than like shit stuff's flying at me all the time. And like her initial entrance down that like alleyway, that sort of light that expanded out into this glorious like 1960s street with like a lush Thunderball poster, and it was gorgeous.
Yeah, I love the scene as well when Sandy's walking down the stairs, and you see Ellie in the mirror walking down with her, and she's like looking in awe in the whole space. I thought that was such a beautiful but kind of restrained kind of use of camera work and effects. It was so good.
And like the elevator scene where it's almost like Ellie's first kiss.
Yeah,
is in this same situation, and is living it in this bizarre mirrored reality, which was really nice. And then the end where the use of mirrors and glass as a motif is pretty much through the entire film. And then when we snap into serial killer stabby movie, it uses it again with this set of stairs, and it's quite like, whoa.
Yeah.
Which was really nice. I really liked that. I like that, and that shot of her coming, like of Sandy coming to kill her, was like, oh, like, this is like at least looks really cool.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed seeing this. It was sort of refreshing to get a film that was being original. I think it's a very original film in itself as concept and execution. So I'm liking the fact that Edgar Wright's heading down this track of trying to just do his own thing, and there's none of this regurgitation, because I could imagine he would have been tempted to keep doing his sort of Cornetto type films. But he hasn't, and he's really showing this really great additions to cinematic universe, if you want, of everything. It's sort of like it's original.
He's, I think, from like the Cornetto trilogy is very interesting in I guess a way of not quite, I don't know if parody is the right word. They're kind of love letters more than parodies, I think.
Yeah.
But then from Scott Pilgrim as a superhero movie to Baby Driver as kind of the action heist movie to this as a horror film, they're three movies that are so unique visually, and they've got, but you can tell it's him.
Yeah.
Yes, everything sort of ties together. You know, you're watching an Edgar Wright movie.
Yeah, he's the way he sort of edits to music, almost like I mean, Baby Driver is like the best music video you've ever seen. The way he crafts action scenes around choices of music is glorious, and tells stories through the music too, in terms of like the deaf characters touching the speakers and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think this takes on a sort of more sinister, but a very lush and pretty look at the 60s, but it's not as, the gutter's closer than you want it to be.
Yeah, I was thrilled to go see a movie like this. It's been so long since I've seen something that's just captured my interest in this kind of way. So thank you, Edgar Wright.
Yeah, it was like after sort of a run of really mediocre not to point fingers at Halloween Kills or anything as far as bad horror movies go lately, but it was like, this is good. Yeah, that was a nice feeling.
Yeah.
To walk out of the movie like,
I got one final criticism though, the closure sequence of success in the fashion world. I'm no fashion critic, but those designs were woeful. She's everyone's wary about. I'm just like, it looks like it's gaffer tape with
I don't mean to criticize your criticism, but have you ever watched one of those fashion shows?
Oh no,
none of it makes any.
You get what I mean?
Sense.
It was just sort of. I know it needed closure, but I just sort of, I think that was a little bit too far, and the fact that it wasn't that impressive in the end.
I was happy watching the house burn down and was kind of comfortable leaving it there.
Yeah,
yeah, same.
Because I enjoyed Derelict much more in terms of a fashion show than than that one. But I guess you sort of needed that closure, because otherwise it would have been quite a nasty feeling you'd have right at the end.
It would have been a grim ending, like Promising Young Woman. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a really light criticism. It's not one where I go,
it's not a make or break ending.
Yeah, I didn't walk out going, that's it, that just ruined it. That fashion was so bad. It was because throughout it, it's amazing production design, and so it was just weirdly underwhelming.
You heard it here, everybody. Jason is the next Tim Gunn of fashion in movies.
Yeah, that's right.
I give it 3 ughs.
Make it work.
Last Night in Soho. Check it out. You will do yourself a favor. It's absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of Pop Culture. I've been Scott.
I think I'm Jason.
And I'm still Monica.
So poorly dressed.